I'm Montse Alvarado. Tonight on EWTN News Nightly, final countdown. All eyes are on the White House today as we await more information on major tariffs that President Trump says will bring us our liberation. Moving out, the Department of Health and Human Services begins a series of massive layoffs. Stern warning. China conducts military exercises around Taiwan as tensions in the region flare up. And help on the way. Learn how the Catholic Order of Malta is stepping in to assist victims of the devastating earthquakes in Myanmar. These stories and more tonight.
From EWTN, the Global Catholic Network, this is EWTN News Nightly.
Thank you for being with us. Our top story tonight: President Donald Trump calls tomorrow Liberation Day in America. He's set to announce a tariff plan that will roll back what the White House describes as unfair trade practices. The Trump administration believes it will help American workers, but critics worry it will raise prices. White House correspondent Owen Jensen reports. Good evening, Owen.
Good evening, Monse. Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt says tomorrow's tariff announcement by President Trump will take place in the White House Rose Garden, and President Trump's cabinet secretaries will be here to attend.
President Donald Trump previews his plan to impose tariffs on imports from other countries.
And I think it's going to be something that's going to bring a lot of wealth back to our country, tremendous wealth back to our country, actually.
The president says the tariffs will also free the U.S. from reliance on foreign goods.
They're reciprocal, so whatever they charge us, we charge them, but we're being nicer than they were.
No specifics just yet, but reciprocal tariffs could take the form of product-by-product duties or broader averages imposed across all goods from each country. White House trade advisor Peter Navarro says the tariffs could raise $600 billion annually, which would imply an average rate of 20%. Today, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt praising the president's upcoming economic announcement.
The president's historic action tomorrow will improve American competitiveness in every area of industry, reduce our massive trade deficits, and ultimately protect our economic and national security.
But other countries not too happy.
So many Europeans feel utterly disheartened by the announcement from the United States.
The European Commission president says the EU holds a lot of cards when it comes to dealing with Trump's new tariffs and has a plan to retaliate if necessary.
Europe did not start this confrontation. We think it is wrong. But my message to you today is that we have everything we need to protect our people and our prosperity.
The White House defends its move.
But too many foreign countries have their markets closed to our exports. This is fundamentally unfair. The lack of reciprocity contributes to our large and persistent annual trade deficit that's gutted our industries and hollowed out key workforces.
In addition, President Trump's 25% tariffs on auto imports will start being collected on Thursday. Officials here say the days of America being ripped off are over. At the White House, Owen Jensen, EWTN News Nightly.
The effect of these reciprocal tariffs is all the talk on Capitol Hill. Democrats say Americans will see higher prices, while millionaires will get tax breaks. Even some Republicans are worried another round of tariffs will hurt consumers, cripple American farmers, and rattle the stock market. Capitol Hill correspondent Eric Rosales joins us with more. Eric?
Good evening, Montse. Yes, since January 20th, President Trump has announced tariffs on steel and aluminum made outside the United States, on all products made in Canada and Mexico, all Chinese goods, and all foreign-made cars, among other things. Some Democrats say enough is enough. Senator Tim Kaine is sponsoring a resolution that would end the emergency declaration that Trump signed back in February to implement tariffs against Canada. The president claimed that Canada wasn't doing enough to stop the flow of fentanyl.
We think that the economic chaos that's being caused and markets being roiled and consumer confidence dropping and some predicting recession, together with a bipartisan vote, might convince the White House, hey, look, there's a better way to treat American citizens and customers.
Senator Ron Wyden, lead Democrat on the Finance Committee, tells me tariffs should be used, but in moderation.
But his across-the-board approach, where you just tariff everything in sight, is anti-consumer, it's anti-small business, and it's pro-inflation, and it's a big mistake.
Publicly, Republicans are standing by President Trump's decision, and House Speaker Mike Johnson says you just have to trust the process.
Look, we'll see what happens. I think it's going to go forward, and it may be rocky in the beginning, but I think that this will make sense for Americans and it will help all Americans.
I think there's going to be some slow pain, but I think there's going to be a lot of gain from it. What else are we going to do? We got a $37 trillion deficit. We're not going to be able to keep this same direction we're going without adding more jobs.
Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer says his research shows these new tariffs will cost American families an extra $6,000 a year.
They should realize the beauty of America helped them become or stay billionaires. The money we invested in education, in roads, in schools, and helping kids get food makes a better workforce.
Republicans add we need an equal playing field for trade.
I am of the view that I'd like to have low tariff rates, but we need to have free, fair, and reciprocal trade. And I think at the end of the day, if we're using these tariffs as a tactic to get to that end result, that can be positive.
And by the way, a vote on Senator Kane's resolution to stop the emergency declaration of tariffs on Canada will likely take place tomorrow. Several Republicans plan to support it, and Democrats only need 4 Republicans to cross the aisle and vote with them. If it does pass the Senate, then it moves on to the House for action. Monse?
Eric, before we let you go, you're also following the latest developments in the U.S. House, and I understand Speaker Mike Johnson canceled all votes for the rest of the week. What happened there?
Well, I tell you what, Speaker Johnson suffered an embarrassing defeat today on the floor after 9 of his own GOP members tanked a procedural vote on a measure that would have allowed party leaders to change House rules. Speaker Johnson and his team basically wanted to block new parents in Congress from voting remotely. He claimed that by allowing lawmakers to do so would be unconstitutional. Speaker Johnson was attempting to kill a push by fellow Republican Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna, who was inspired by her own difficulty traveling to Washington, D.C. after she was recovering from having a newborn baby. But Luna waged her own successful campaign and ended up defeating Johnson's effort.
And I think that it's important to have family voices in Washington, but it's also equally important to ensure that female representatives are given a platform and that we can still vote. I mean, you can't help childbirth. It's a very natural thing.
A handful of Republicans joined with all the Democrats to take down a rule that's rarely done. It's very unfortunate in this case. 96% of House Republicans voted against proxy voting because they believe it's unconstitutional and they agree that it would open a Pandora's box.
After that vote, Speaker Johnson ended up saying no votes will take place for the rest of the week here on Capitol Hill, at least in the House. He adds that the party will regroup and resume voting next week. Monse?
Thank you so much, Eric. From President Trump's immigration policies to DOJ government cuts, New Jersey Senator Cory Booker pulled an all-nighter, delivering a marathon speech on the Senate floor. A speech which began at 7 p.m. Monday night still continues at this hour.
I keep going back to how this document is being undermined and attacked by this president. And one of the powers and responsibilities that we swore to uphold, every one of us swore to uphold this, was that we are to be a check on the administration.
The speech appeared to be part of an attempt by Democrats to retake the initiative and more assertively oppose President Trump. The senator divided his remarks into sections focused on an aspect of the administration's policies, including on health care, education, immigration, and national security. Today in Florida, there are 2 special elections taking place to fill Republican vacant House seats. Democrats are hoping that results are in their favor, which could change control of the U.S. House and could open the door for more seats going blue in the 2026 midterms. The seats were vacated by former Congressman Mike Walz and the resignation of Matt Gaetz last November. Republicans should hold on to the seats, which Trump won by more than 30% in each district. But it's the first test of President Trump's agenda since taking office. Mass layoffs began this morning at the Department of Health and Human Services. An email from an HHS official to employees says the reduction in force is not a reflection on work performance. It comes after the department said it would cut 10,000 full-time employees on top of the thousands who exited voluntarily. Cuts are expected at the Food and Drug Administration as well as the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. New information this evening in the trial of the man accused of killing a healthcare executive. U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi has directed federal prosecutors to seek the death penalty in the case. Luigi Mangione is accused of gunning down United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson outside a New York City hotel on December 4th. He faces separate federal and state murder charges. The federal charges include murder through the use of a firearm, which carries the possibility of the death penalty. Mangione has pleaded not guilty on the state indictment, but has entered a plea on the federal charges. Now to Oklahoma, where Governor Kevin Stitt signed an executive order instructing state officials to ensure the state's laws are, quote, the most robust in the nation at protecting religious freedom. He also criticized the state attorney general for attempting to block a proposed Catholic charter school there. St. Isidore of Seville Catholic Virtual School could be the nation's first publicly funded religious charter school. A federal judge has ruled that Alabama cannot prosecute people for helping women obtain abortions out of state. The case was prompted by statements made by Alabama's Attorney General shortly after the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade in 2022. An abortion fund sued Steve Marshall after he claimed he had the right to prosecute anyone who helped an Alabama woman get an abortion in another state. Yesterday, the federal judge in the case declared that such prosecutions would violate both the First Amendment and a person's right to travel. Alabama is among the first states to take on the out-of-state abortion issue. We have a lot more still to come on EWTN News Nightly, including critical help. As Myanmar reels after a massive earthquake, we speak to the Catholic Order helping the country through the disaster. And 5 new people could be on their way to sainthood, which causes Pope Francis just advanced. More violence in the Middle East as Israel strikes both Lebanon and Gaza. 3 were killed in Beirut, Lebanon, after an airstrike in the city's suburbs. The Israeli military says it targeted a member of Hezbollah who was helping the Hamas terrorist organization. Meanwhile, in Gaza, authorities say 41 are dead in the latest round of airstrikes from Israel, including a prominent Palestinian journalist along with his wife and kids. Hundreds are injured after a gas pipeline burst into flames in Malaysia. The horrifying scene captured on video shows flames as high as 20 stories shooting into the sky. A Malaysian oil company says the fire started at one of its gas pipelines outside Kuala Lumpur, leaving a huge crater in an empty area. The injured are being treated for 2nd and 3rd degree burns, while the fire department says the blaze damaged 190 houses. An investigation into the cause is underway. The latest numbers from Myanmar now show that more than 2,700 people have died. This after the 7.7 magnitude earthquake that struck on Friday. More than 400 people are still missing as recovery efforts continue across the country. For nearly 30 years, the Order of Malta has been on the ground in Myanmar, delivering vital medical aid and humanitarian support to those who need it most. Now, in the wake of the devastating earthquake, their mission has taken on a new urgency as they mobilize resources and relief teams to the hardest-hit areas. Joining us now from Germany is Clemens Graf von Mirbach-Harf, Secretary General of Malteser International. Welcome to the show. What kind of immediate medical assistance and psychosocial support is the Order of Malta providing to those affected by the earthquake?
Well, thank you for having me. I'm happy to report on our activities in Myanmar. We do have a large experience and local team in Myanmar who immediately activated their disaster plans. We are now working especially to support the people in the worst affected areas of the country around Mandalay. This means we provide shelter, materials, we provide hygiene kits, mother and baby supplies, as well as medical care and the measures to ensure clean water and sanitation is available. But of course, we are dealing with infectious disease. We are having a real threat there, which is the momentum and the exposing of the population to that. And as a Catholic organization, we have a holistic view of the human dignity, and so psychosocial measures, care for the soul, are intrinsic aspect of what we're doing, of anything we do, actually.
What are some of your biggest challenges? Obviously, you've been on the ground before, you know the local reality. How is the Order of Malta coordinating with these local organizations to ensure that aid reaches those who really need it?
So wherever we work, we are under the obligation to seek and to coordinate our activities with the local civil authorities and the relevant international bodies. So we do that with other NGOs, NGO clusters, and our office in Myanmar is currently working really, really hard in doing this. The safety of our staff on the ground is, of course, one of the highest priorities, and we are doing everything we can do to make sure that we are able to carry out our mission in a responsible and effective way. As a humanitarian NGO, MI follows the policy of strict political neutrality.
Now, we know that long-term recovery efforts are really important. There's no such thing as just swooping in and fixing things overnight. How do you foresee what happens next after this immediate response?
So we do have a certain experience, unfortunately, with big disasters as such. We've been active, and we are active in Syria, where we had this terrible earthquake 2 years ago, or beginning of the year. It is clear that rebuilding efforts will take years and will require huge investments. Some of the estimates say already in Myanmar that the damage caused by the earthquake is equivalent to the annual GDP of the country. As a Catholic organization, our commitment does not have an expiry date. So usually we stay with the people as long as they need us or bear us. And then as an Order of Malta organization, we have been working to serve as we say, the lords, the poor and the sick for 900 years. So we will continue to do that in Myanmar as long as we are accepted and as long as we are able to do that.
Well, we're grateful for that support, and we'll be praying for your efforts. Clemens Graf von Mirbach-Harf, Secretary General of Malteser International. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Montserrat.
The U.S. State Department has imposed sanctions on Chinese officials. This in the wake of what it calls a continuing political crackdown in Hong Kong. In 2020, massive anti-government protests broke out in Hong Kong. In response, the city's government imposed a sweeping national security law, one that the U.S. says represses pro-democracy activists. In all, 6 officials were sanctioned. The penalties include freezing of assets in the United States and a block on the use of the U.S. banking system. Joining us now for analysis is Andrew Latham, Professor of International Relations. Thank you for joining us. First, why are these sanctions being imposed right now?
Well, I think it's part of a broader campaign on the part of the Trump administration. It's not just about tariffs. It's about blunting and blocking and balancing China's influence in the world. And one of the ways you do this is to focus on Hong Kong, focus on dissidents, focus on the Uyghur people, and focus on Taiwan. It's all of a piece, and it's all really, at the end of the day, about balancing China's effort to dominate the Indo-Pacific region.
Now, issues of freedom and democracy are not new in China. Prominent businessman and pro-democracy activist Jimmy Lai is facing life imprisonment at the hands of the Hong Kong authorities. He's been in jail already for 5 years. Could these sanctions be a way to help to free him?
Well, my instinct is to say no, although President Trump, as everybody has been saying, is quite transactional, and maybe there's a deal to be done there. But Jimmy Lai represents a real threat to the power and authority of the Chinese Communist Party. I cannot envision a set of circumstances under which he would be set free.
Do you think this is the beginning of a sustained effort by the U.S. to hold authorities accountable for restricting freedoms of people in Hong Kong and just pursuing that in general overseas?
Well, I think the advocacy for freedom and democracy, that's subordinate to a bigger goal, which is to, as I said, balance China. The Trump administration very much wants out of Europe at the moment. It very much wants out of the Middle East. Some exceptions there with respect to Israel. Why? Because it wants to focus on hemispheric security. So that's all the talk about Greenland and Panama and Canada. But it really wants to focus on balancing China in the Indo-Pacific. And the United States has limited resources. It has to make hard decisions about where to allocate those resources. And this administration, I think, to be charitable to them, has decided that the Indo-Pacific is where those resources really need to be allocated. And this has less to do with democracy and freedom and more to do with balancing China.
Well, these sanctions do come as China launches military drills as a, quote, serious warning to independence separatist forces in Taiwan. Taiwan, of course, is a close ally of the United States. Are we starting to see tensions rise between the two countries?
We have been for a long time now, ever since Xi Jinping came to power. His rule is based increasingly on a nationalist ideology, and Chinese nationalism makes the claim, which is ahistorical and wrong, but makes the claim that Taiwan has always been part of China and it needs to be returned to the fold. And so Xi Jinping, is increasingly posturing around that set of themes. They won't be ready to invade until 2027. That's the conventional wisdom, at least in the Western world. But blockading and quarantining the island, that's already sort of what's going on. And the United States has been pushing back, as have American friends and allies and partners in the region, Australia, for example, even India under the Quad, sort of pushing back against this idea. But it's a rock and a hard place. On the one hand, China really needs to reincorporate Taiwan into the People's Republic of China. And on the other hand, the Taiwanese and Americans, the American government, this administration, will not tolerate that. So it remains to be seen how that's going to shake out.
Well, that's certainly something to watch. Thank you so much, Professor Lathan.
You're welcome.
The clock is ticking on the popular app TikTok, who once again is struggling to find a buyer. Its parent company, ByteDance, must sell the app's U.S. operations by this Saturday. If it doesn't, it will be banned in the United States. U.S. lawmakers have long been concerned that TikTok poses a national security risk. In January, TikTok took itself offline for about 14 hours after the initial sale or ban deadline passed with no deal. President Trump then extended the deadline to April 5th. Up next on EWTN News Nightly, health update. New information released today on the health of Pope Francis. We have the latest. Plus, the path to sainthood just opened up for 5 people. We'll take a look at the causes the Holy Father just advanced. A volcano is erupting in southwestern Iceland just hours after a nearby community and spa were evacuated. Flames and smoke shot through the air at the time of eruption. The community of Grindavik faced the same scenario last year when the volcano came to life. Authorities say the total length of the eruptive fissure is more than 3,000 feet and extending southward. Iceland sits above a volcanic hotspot in the North Atlantic. The Vatican says Pope Francis remains in stable condition as he recovers from his illness at Casa Santa Marta. The Holy See press office says the Holy Father's blood work is normal and a recent chest x-ray shows improvement in his lungs. He concelebrates Mass each morning in the chapel at his residence. The office added there will be no general audience this week and says it's too early to predict the Pope's participation in Holy Week activities. Finally tonight, as the Holy Father recovers from his illness, he has advanced the path to sainthood for 5 people. The Vatican says Blessed Peter Turot, Blessed Ignatius Shukrala Maloyan, and Blessed Maria Carmen are all set to be proclaimed saints of the Church. While beatification was approved for Italian diocesan priest Carmelo de Palma and Brazilian priest José Antonio de Maria Ibapina was declared venerable. The faithful in Venezuela rejoice at the news of Blessed Maria Carmen's sainthood as she is set to become the nation's first female saint. We thank you for watching tonight. Remember, you can follow us on social media, Facebook, X, and Instagram at EWTN News Nightly. I'm Montse Alvarado. Good night, and God bless you.